Good evening, everyone, and blessed be. Welcome to another episode of Readings at the Witching Hour. I am your host, Aries StarWind, and this is Witches Connected. So last night we actually started the final section of the first chapter of definitions of our reading, which is the book Wiccan Beliefs and Practices with Rituals for Solitaries and Covens by the author Gary Cantrell. So the final section that we're going to finish up tonight is a Wiccan philosophy. So I'm going to jump right back into it, and I want to apologize. I think my neighbor might be having some type of soiree, so if you hear some loud music in the background, that's all it is. Don't be alarmed. I'm okay, I promise. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go and jump right back into it. Again, this is the final section of the beginning chapter of definitions of a Wiccan philosophy. I'm going to read the very last sentence we left off with last night, so it kind of blends right in with the rest of our reading. All right. We are and have always been part of the goddess and God, and they are and have always been part of all of us. To take this idea one step further, we also conceive of the many aspects of the god and goddess that are represented by the actual named entities we invoke and address at our rituals and rites. We understand that our deities are not single individual entities. These thousands of aspects are each part of the essential personality of the god and goddess, each unique and each directly addressable. When we do an invocation or a ritual spellcasting, it is vitally important that we understand exactly which personification or aspect of our particular deity we wish to invoke. Each aspect of the god and goddess deity has a specific name, and these are the names we call at our rites. In short, every god and goddess of virtually any Wiccan tradition have multiple aspects, each one of them available to the practitioner to be called on as necessary, and each one unique. We also understand that the domain of the goddess is in the night sky. She is invoked each Esbet as the silver lady of the night, the full moon, ruling the tides of oceans and the cycles of women. She is the triple goddess as her symbol moves from young woman to mature woman to old crone, to death and rebirth on a monthly cycle as represented by the phases of the moon. As the maiden, she brings a new beginning. As the mother, she represents the nourishment of birth. And as the crone, she is all wisdom and compassion. She rules over all fertility, crops, and reproduction. She is the goddess of the fields, streams, woodlands, the sea, and all small creatures. She is fertility for all living things, giving birth and nourishing the young, be they animal or vegetable. She is the mother of us all, our creatrix, and in the end, all will return to her. We understand that the domain of the god is the day sky. He rules over all aspects of the hunt, and is the consort of the goddess in reproduction, ever dying, being constantly reborn to rise as her son and her lover. He is the fire lord of the day, the blazing sun. He is the dispeller of the cold of winter and the bringer of the warmth of summer. He is hunter, craftsman, warrior, shepherd, and lover. He is the horned god of the forest and mountains and defender of all creatures. He is the nature force that impregnates Mother Earth. He is the wisdom and empowerment of all physical laws. He is the father of us all, our creator, and in the end, all will return to him. Like the goddess, the god can have many aspects, and like her, it is necessary to know and understand which of his aspects a practitioner is trying to call upon when ritual work is being done. And it's going to talk a little bit about a figure we have. You guys won't be able to see the figure, but I'll go ahead and keep reading and I'll try to describe the figure to you once we get there. Figure 3 is a graphical representation of these concepts. While this figure does not attempt to identify the many aspects of God and Goddess can represent, since that would be impossible in a single graphic, it does give a general idea of how we may view or interpret the interrelationships comprising a basic Wiccan theology. The figure boxes labeled aspects could represent literally thousands of entities, each with a specific name and each with a specific responsibility within any number of pantheons. Wicca, like all religions, addresses the issue of life after death. Unlike at least the Christian religions, however, Wicca does not endorse the concepts of heaven or hell, with the corresponding one-time reward or punishment scenario. These are strictly parts of the Christian theology. Wiccan philosophy embraces the concept of multiple reincarnations. The physical body you presently inhabit is only a shell for the intellect, the soul, or the spirit, call it what you will. The physical demise of that material entity releases the spirit back to the place we call Summerland for a time of rejuvenation, reflection, and ultimately another incarnation of the physical self. This process of reincarnation is repeated for numerous lifetimes until a development of the spirit is reached where the spirit can truly merge with the male and female balanced creator/creatrix entity. We return to the god and to the goddess. This is one of the basic truths of the Wiccan religion. What really is Summerland? Many define it as a place of ultimate peace and contentment, the place of eternal springs and summers, of soft green grasses and gentle warm breezes, and of a clear, cool water. It is the ultimate paradise, a place not of death, but of life. The Romans called it Avalonia, from which comes the Avalon of Arthurian legend. The Norse call it Valhalla. North American Indians may call it the last hunting ground, and some other pagan religions may simply call it the other world. We all have our definitions and our concepts of what Summerland is, and they are mostly different, driven by our own desires and our understandings of the afterlife. It is therefore not readily definable in the written sense. It is a place in the hearts and minds of each of us, and its definitions vary with each of us. One thing is certain, though, in the philosophy of Wicca. We know that Summerland awaits us all as we pass from this incarnation, and we know also that Summerland is only the first step on our individual roads to immortality. As pagans, we understand that even as our physical bodies may cease to exist in what we perceive as the present physical world, some of our essence will continue to inhabit that world even as our spirits journey through the gates of Summerland. This concept is beautifully represented in a prose that I have seen many times and in many forms, although each variation says essentially the same thing. I am unaware of the author of the original work, so for purposes of this manuscript, it is simply anonymous. And he's got a reading here, so we're going to read this. Do not grieve for me when I die, for I am still here. I will be in the evergreen trees of the forest. I will be in the flowers of the meadow. I will be in the spray of surf at the beach. I will be in the sigh of the wind on a warm summer day. I will be in the waters of the rushing stream. I will be in the light of the sun and of the full moon. I will be with the god and goddess forever. I will be reborn. I love that, by the way. And he did at the bottom, he put anonymous. Alright, we're going to continue. How often we may reincarnate and how much time is spent in Summerland between incarnations is a matter of conjecture among various authors and Wiccan practitioners. We own past life experiences. Let me subscribe to a break or space between incarnations of what appears to be at least several hundred years. How many incarnations we may experience probably depends on each individual spirit entity. Since the ultimate merging process is one of growth and experience, it is probably up to each of us as individuals to determine how many incarnations we experience before final union with our God and Goddess. Can the reincarnation process be cross-species or cross-gender? I personally believe, this is coming from the author, I personally believe that it is not cross-species. Once the cycle is begun as a human entity, it must continue in that vein to completion. As to cross-gender, I don't know. One can argue that in order to achieve the complete balance of male and female, which is emphasized in Wicca, one should experience existence as both sexes. So far, my personal, past experiences have only reflected a male existence, as far as I can tell. Wicca is more than a religion of nature, ritual, and reincarnation philosophy. It is also a religion of healing and change using a positive mental state and positive energy to achieve relief from both internal and external injuries or problems. This is the application of magic or spellcraft that we use to bring about these positive changes, a concept we will discuss in detail in Chapter 6. The witch also understands and uses meditation techniques, as well as various herbs, either wild or cultivated, in conjunction with mainstream medical practices to help alleviate illness or injury. Our skills are meant to work in conjunction with modern medicine, not to replace it. I think that's very, very, very important. All right, that is the end of the first chapter, but we are going to read his chapter summary, so we kind of can go back on what we learned in these first three sessions, and I think just in case, it will be able to sum up everything that we just read. So, chapter summary. As we have discussed in this chapter, the definition of pagan, Wiccan, and witch vary among pagans depending on the training and pagan tradition followed. Generally speaking, not all pagans are Wiccans, not all pagans are necessarily witches, and not all witches are Wiccans, but all Wiccans are indeed witches. Regardless of whether we practice the craft in covens or as solitaries, we practice it fully autonomous environment. We and we alone are totally responsible for the content and format of our rituals and rites, and for how we establish a relationship with the Lord and Lady. There is no single individual appointed over us, no one empowered with the title of Grand Pagan, King or Queen of all witches, or Supreme Wiccan. Nor is there an overall world council of witches passing laws and handing down directives to the rest of us. Even when a new coven hives off from another, and there is some allegiance between the two, that relationship is never such that one is subservient to the other. There are, however, several loose confederations of pagans, such as the Covenant of the Goddess, and some of the public awareness or public education organizations, like the Pagan Educational Network. In these type of associations, covens and solitaries occasionally come together as both individuals and groups to celebrate a major Sabbath, jointly or to address a common issue. The upside to this autonomy is that we are indeed all fully independent in thought, word, and deed, at least within our own tradition, to practice as we see fit. The downside is that it is difficult for us to organize into any really unified or cohesive whole if it becomes necessary to address a legal issue involving our rights, or even if one of us might be threatened. I strongly suggest that if you are practicing in a small coven or as a solitary, that you at least make an effort to contact other pagans in your area and develop some form of relationship. This can usually be accomplished through a local pagan or occult shop, or failing that, try the internet and search for like-minded groups within your geographical area. It is important that you have some idea where to go in order to resolve questions about the religion, or just to be able to swap ideas and concepts with one another, and to be made aware of possible anti-witch activities or pogroms, or in the worst case, to have some place to ask for help if that need should ever arise. Since we are all fully autonomous, we are all free to interpret the guidelines of the old religion as we understand them and to worship the old ones in our own way. Others may disagree with our interpretations and even with some of our rituals, and it is fully their right to do so. But novice or elder, but any disagreement must be seen in the context of the other person's tradition or path, and no one, regardless of tenure in the craft or position in their own coven, is automatically endowed with infinite wisdom and infallible knowledge of all things Wiccan. No one has the right to tell another practitioner that they are doing it all wrong. In fact, I have known novices, those still in their first year and a day of study, who have demonstrated more craft spirituality and magical insight than some people who have been practicing the craft for years. We practice a very old religion, one that venerates life and understands the magical relationship between ourselves and the divinity we call nature, one that predates by thousands of years the advent of Gerald Gardner and the establishment of Gardnerian Wicca. Our religion is generically called witchcraft, although we who practice it today usually call it Wicca. No one, regardless of his or her professed craft genealogy, has ownership of the word witch, and can tell you that you cannot call yourself a witch or practice witchcraft unless you do so in a certain way. Practice the craft in whatever way gives you a spiritual connection to the god and goddess, and do it in such a way that you grow spiritually and magically. Do all these things in conformance with the Wiccan law, and you are indeed practicing witchcraft. Wicca is a peaceful, nature-loving, and life-affirming religion with an inherent belief in the balance of nature, which can incorporate the practice of witchcraft in order to bring about a positive change in our lives or in our environment. We do not profess to be the only way, and we understand that what is the right and sensible path for us may not be the right path for others. There are many religions in this world, and there are many traditions within paganism and many paths within Wicca. Each one of them is meaningful and viable to its practitioners. We honor and support all religions in the belief that religion is an individual choice, that each person must follow his or her own personal path of conviction. We do not disparage other religions or modes of worship, and we do not attempt to convert others to our way of thinking. Our way can only be attained through an individual's own initiative, never by proselytizing or recruitment. Wicca is a peaceful and loving religion, and these concepts are incorporated into our rituals and daily activities. The tenet, love is the law and love is the bond, is fully understood and recognized by all practitioners of Wicca. And that is the end of the very first chapter of definitions. And, just getting over that last bit of cold, but I'm doing all right now, doing great. But yeah, that is the very end of the chapter of definitions, and it just gives at the very end it gives a table of pretty much the different paths you can choose to take in Wicca. One, it has Alexandrian, British traditional, Celtic, Dianic, eclectic, Gardnerian, hereditary, kitchen witch, Sioux Wicca, Strega, and Teutonic or Nordic. And yep, there's 11. So that is the end of the first chapter, everybody, and I think that was a great introduction to what we're getting ready to really delve into, because this book it gets pretty deep. It does. I did want to read ahead a little bit just to see, and kind of just breeze through what the chapters are going to involve. And this book is gonna really get into the nitty gritty of the craft. And I like at the very end of this chapter, it did mention finally, the importance and the power behind spell work, which is going to be, I think they said it's going to be spoken about more later in chapter 6. And I think that gives us a few good chapters to really get a grasp on it before we start entering into the world of magic and casting spells. So there we are. I'm actually going to be possibly making another video tonight. We got some awesome events coming up for StarWind, and I did want to kind of update everybody on what my plans are for these coming weeks. So I will make that video possibly tonight, and I'll have that posted probably right after this one. So blessed be everyone, and Goddess bless. I hope you enjoyed the first chapter, and I will see you all tomorrow for the beginning of Chapter 2 in Wiccan Beliefs and Practices by Gary Cantrell. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.